I thought my gambling losses being somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000 accumulated over the past 10 years was pretty bad. However, after reading some gambling horror stories, I've realized that my losses pale in comparison to most seasonal gamblers. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Reese, and today's video is going to be the last on the topic of gambling for a while. This channel is focused on preserving and building people's finances, and every now and then there are going to be things that challenge and threaten people's ability to continue on these paths. So today I wanted to wrap up the 3-part segment that I have made surrounding the topic of gambling with some horror stories that I have dug up on Reddit. Starting with this post here being a gambling addiction. They want to explain like I'm 5. I want to understand, how does it start? What makes it worse? Why does it become so difficult to recover? And this comment here really sums it up. There is already a lot of good explanation of this from the scientific phenomenon perspective, but I'd like to answer from the personal, inside the head perspective as the child of a gambling addict. A gambling addict is ultimately someone who loses the perspective to do the math on their losses and dreams constantly of the big reward that might be. They will develop rituals and routines around gambling. On the way home from work, I stop at the convenience store and buy $25 worth of scratch tickets. Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose, but it doesn't start out as being a big loss comparative to the income they make, so don't worry that much about it. And this is where it gets interesting. The insidious plot turn is that they then can't go home without stopping at the store to buy those tickets. Not only that, they can't get even one fewer ticket than what the ritual dictates, because what if that ticket was the one? What if the last ticket that I always buy was the $1 million jackpot and I skipped it today? This feeling tears these people apart. The certainty that the ticket they didn't buy was the winner they've been searching for their whole lives. And I personally am going to touch on this just in a moment. However, let's get through this. Once that feeling takes hold in the routine, it gains more and more control over their psyche until they reach a point where every last dollar they don't spend gambling is quitting on the dream. They failed themselves. If they leave any potential winning bet ungambled, it doesn't matter how deep they are in the hole, the next might be the one that solves all of their problems and creates perfect bliss. But it doesn't. There are small wins along the way, and yeah, every once in a while, very small percentage of addicts will hit it big or see normal financial gains in life. This actually is the worst thing that can happen to a gambling addict. Invariably, it doesn't fix their problems because in the process, they have become very sick people with the worst imaginable financial sense. It's an already morbidly obese person getting a lifetime pass at the all-you-can-eat buffet. The problems aren't solved, they are exponentially magnified. The illusion of that money will fix every single thing and fill every single hole is shattered when you spend all the money on everything you could ever ask for that money can buy, and you don't feel any better even when you've spent it all. And that's what happened to my dad's savings from the high-powered sales job he lost. It's what happened to my college fund. It's what happened to half of his equity in the house that my mum bought him out in the divorce. He burned it all on scratch tickets at the casino playing Keno or anywhere else he could try to win big. He went from a dream house and sports car in a picturesque neighborhood to the shittest, tiniest apartment in a small town, barely able to keep a crappy car, all the while thinking, well, I'll just play one more time. This story, in a nutshell, is fantastic for this type of video. I think just that read in general was a fantastic story. And the point that hits way too close to home for me is the point that they made specifically about not being able to deviate away from the ritual. I absolutely have these tendencies, and a great way I can portray it in this video and make it visual is through a game that I play called Diablo 2. While I'm hunting for items in this game, there are lots of little hidden clickables, such as hidden rocks, treasure chests, and unlooted corpses. I have noted that I get physically anxious if I don't click on every single one of these poppables because one of them might have a valuable item hiding behind it. It has gotten to the point where if I do not click on every single one, I actually get cold sweats, which is really concerning. And I can only imagine that this would be a similar feeling, that gut-wrenching feeling that if they didn't buy the ticket that they were supposed to buy based on their ritual, then they deviated from it, they've lost the opportunity to find that amazing item. It really messes with my head, and I'm playing a video game. Imagine someone who's losing money on a scale that I probably couldn't even fathom. All right, let's move away from that morbid story. Let's move on to thread number 2. This thread here goes into some crazy gambling addict stories that people have seen, and my favorite from the thread was written by this person here. Last year in Atlantic City, I go fairly often, so I can't remember which casino it was. I was at a $20 minimum blackjack table. Not the lowest, but rarely do you find people betting life-changing amounts of money. Clearly, no high rollers. I was there for about an hour when a middle-aged female sat down. She was betting probably anywhere from the minimum up to $40 per hand. She really didn't have any idea what she was doing. Not only was she not doubling down, splitting when she should have been, even when people told her to, because when you play blackjack, you're allowed to talk amongst each other. You're playing against the house, not your friends. She was one of those people who always hit on 15 and stayed on 16 regardless of what the dealer had. Needless to say, about an hour and a half later, she blew through her stash. I don't remember what she started with, but it couldn't have been more than $200 to $300. Here's where the turn takes place. When she lost her last hand, she started crying out of nowhere. Everyone at the table looked at each other like, what the hell is going on? Where she started pleading with the dealer, saying she's a mother of 4 and that she needs that money to pay rent. After pleading for about 20 seconds, an older guy next to her interfered and said something along the lines of, well, you shouldn't be betting money that you can't afford to lose, especially if it's for your children. And eventually she left. You could tell that the woman was literally upset, or legitimately upset. Apparently I can't read today, although I'm not sure if her sob story was true about paying rent, but it was odd because she lost only a couple of $100. Yes, maybe she was at other tables prior, but the whole thing was still weird. I wanted to just cover this story from that thread in particular. There were some other good ones, and I've left a link to it down in the description below. But this story in particular, again, the mindset that this woman had, let's say she was lying. Let's say that she didn't have to pay rent. She didn't have 4 kids. She's lost her money. She's trying to plead with the dealer to feel bad for her. I don't know. I doubt she would ever get her money back in that scenario. But let's just say that's what's going through her mind, where she's a seasonal gambler trying to get more money back so she can go play elsewhere. That's messed up. That's a problem. That's what you call a gambling addict. Let's say she did have a truthful sob story. She needed to pay rent and she did have 4 kids that money needed to go towards feeding them. Those kids are going to suffer. Her life is going to go downhill because at a point this will become unsustainable. She might not have savings she can tap into. She might need to take out personal loans to be able to afford it. And in that instance, she might even end up gambling some of that money. This is trouble. This is a problem. This is something that is not going to help you get out of financial stress. It's not something that's going to be good for your finances. And it's why I wanted to include it in today's video. It's pretty frightening to think about the fact that people like this exist, and it's not their fault necessarily. It kind of is, but it isn't. It's just really scary to think that these people need help and they don't know it. They don't know how to get the help. The support mechanisms in place kind of go against what these people need. The enticement to go back to a casino is going to be there. The enticement to gamble is going to be there. These are like really problem gamblers, and it's a really sad story, regardless of it only being $200 to $300. Who knows how many times she's done this? How many times she's cried to someone saying, please give me my money back. Really interesting story. Let's move on to the next. This thread has actual experience from casino workers where some of these comments go into the most they have ever seen someone lose and what the loser's reaction was. First comment, surveillance here. I've seen a regular go through a few hundred, then go to an ATM to get more, only to find that not 1, not 2, but 3 or 4 of the cards were over the limit. Then go to the cage to try and float a check. Nope, those are run electronically and withdrawn immediately. Denied, goes to the car, digs around for car money, finds a few bucks, blows it and leaves. And this goes on for years. What a terrible cycle to be in. I don't even want to go into comments from that. That's number 1, super sad. Number 2, when I was an RA, I'm going to assume that's real estate agent, a resident of mine lost his semester's tuition and housing money in a night of poker. He then lied to his parents and said he was robbed. Look, if you got rich parents and you're losing their money, what a weird scenario to be in. Not something I'm accustomed to. That again, super crazy. Like that would be the second comment on there is like, they're suggesting it's 10 grand. Tuition is not cheap and definitely not to be gambled away. How sad, what a weird scenario that would be. And I don't even have words to describe it. It would just be terrible. Like imagine having to go to your parents, like, sorry, I lost all your money. and they weren't the ones to take that risk. Like they thought it was going towards tuition. This one was deleted. Interesting. The most, about 400K. His reaction, stone-faced silence. He did not give a shit at all in any way. This was in the VIP suite for international customers. Now, you go to the main floor with the general public and they lose $10 to $15 and they flip their shit about it. With a different customer, he lost everything along the lines of $20 million over the course of the night, threatened to kill the dealer's family, the supervisor's family. Nothing was done to him at all. Everyone has a different reaction. Usually the ones playing small limits have the biggest flip outs, as they are normal people with lower incomes or addicts and the need to get their rush. The richer people can handle their losses better, but can have a more high and mighty attitude. Okay, I gotta unpack two things. The first being that, yes, I completely agree. People who lose smaller amounts of money, who are gambling smaller amounts of money, generally aren't the people who have the money to lose. Let's go back to my lady friend who lost $200 to $300 and had an absolute sook to the bartender or the dealer, whatever it was, back in the comment that I had just a moment ago. That is absolutely truthful. I can imagine it. These are the people who are most vulnerable to gambling, in my honest opinion. Let's unpack the second point. With a different customer, so this is someone else on this comment, he lost something along the lines of $20 million over the course of the night. Like, what are you talking about? Like imagine $5 million right now would set myself, my partner, and my future probably 2 generations of kids up. 5 million. 1 million would pay off all my debt. I would literally be able to live free and happy. Happy is the wrong word, but I'd be able to live free. Like, for perspective, how do you lose $20 million in one night gambling? Like, I can't comprehend that. I don't think 99.999% of people would be able to comprehend that, because it's just not normal. It's just insanity. That's why I included it. What a story. All right, last one. A coworker of mine used to gamble every weekend in a nearby town. He and his wife would each bring $50 and a book. Their rule was you gamble on the $50 as long as you want. If you lose it all, then you read your book until the other is done. Seemed fair enough. He said she always out-gambled him. She was super lucky, usually bringing home $200 to $400. He read a lot, meaning he probably lost the $50 almost every time he went in there. 6 months before he was ready to retire, he discovered the truth. She was losing her ass every week. She was pulling money from the ATM and claiming she'd won it. As the family financial person, she was pulling money from his retirement account and covering her losses. He had no clue. He always trusted her while she lied for years, saying that his retirement account was full enough for them to live into their golden years. I've never seen a man so freaking defeated. He had to cancel his retirement. He divorced her. I don't know what happened to her, but he died alone one night out about 2 years later. Gut-wrenching. Don't even need to comment about it. What a story. Like, if that's true, and I assure you there would be many that would be true like that, it's so terrible. Like, it's just disgusting to think that that happens to people. Like, what a crazy story. And gambling is the crux of it, so that's why I'm covering it today. I'm just staring at the screen because I read it through for a second time and I'm just like in disbelief that this could happen to people. It's just nuts to me. Okay, to finish off today's video, while I was searching for my examples, I came across this thread here posted by a problemed gambler, where the user talks about their own method to cope with gambling losses. Basically, the gambling addict says that I have started using my losses as a lesson. It is expensive depending on how much I lose. The losses that I incur are the lesson. Treat it as if it was me paying for education into why I shouldn't be doing this, in an attempt to change his mindset, because losing money is bad and eventually it becomes a problem. And if you chase your losses, it becomes an even bigger problem. That's what gambling addicts essentially fall into, the problems of gambling. And this here is a really interesting read. I'm not going to read it word for word. I'll leave a link in the description below to the post so you can have a look at it. Read it on screen, pause if you want to, but just in general, I thought it was an interesting take for someone to be like, this is a problem. And the way that I'm going to mentally think about it is that every time I lose $1, it's another dollar towards today's lesson of this is how much money it cost me to realize that this is not a good habit to have and that it is potentially a problem. So I thought it was an interesting one to include in today's video. That's why you're seeing it on the screen right now. Overall, this video was intended to give some perspective and insight into the world of problem gamblers. I wanted to give some examples and shed some light on the topic. The point of the 3-part mini-series on the topic of gambling and why I'm talking about it is because it is dangerous. If you are someone who has these tendencies that I've talked about throughout this series, if you've seen the other videos, it is a potential problem that you could fall into these traps. And if you're more aware of their existence and the painful and hurtful scenarios that can play out when people lose large sums of money and the emotional experiences they go through, how it ruins relationships and people's finances in general. A guy literally couldn't retire and died alone because his wife was the problem, not him. It's really eye-opening, and that's why I really wanted to talk about these topics in these videos and bring awareness to the topic, because I think it's really important as part of the temptations that people have in our everyday lives and how we manage our finances. Gambling is one that people need to be very, very aware of. And ultimately, I hope I've covered them relatively extensively in the 3 videos that I have made on the topic. Ultimately, just remember, if you are someone who likes or enjoys gambling, make sure you set limits and rules for yourself and you stick to them so you do not find yourself falling into the traps of the toxic environment that is the world of gambling. And with that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you enjoyed the mini series if you watched all 3 videos. I hope that you took something from it. I hope it was insightful. If it was, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button down below, turning bell notifications on so you don't miss any of the videos I release. And with that being said, I will leave you there. Hope you have a good day. Hope you have a good week. And as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.